this meeting or thank you, wants to revisit what the conversation has been, but it's great to have you all here. This is the fourth session of our annual Policy for the People series. And today's topic is our Good Food Policy Agenda. Welcome. My name is Rachel Newman Green. I am the Associate Director for Network with the Rhode Island Food Policy Council. And I'm going to ask you all if you would please introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, your pronouns, if you so choose. And my question for you is, what are you doing to celebrate the turn of the year? We were all just talking about how we are going to appreciate it getting warmer and lighter. I'll share that I'm excited to celebrate the turn of the year by taking a trip to visit some old friends and family that I haven't seen in a very long time. And I welcome the rest of you to please enter your names, however you'd like to identify yourself and what you're doing to celebrate the turn of the year in the chat. So these monthly Policy for the People sessions are one of the best things that you can do to learn how to use your voices and your experiences to make policy change for good. Here at the Rhode Island Food Policy Council, we are so happy to have you join us, and we hope that you understand how important your participation is today. This is meant to be an interactive session, so please use the chat and your reactions for questions. We'll also have some time at the end for what other questions might come up that we can't get to right away. This session today brings us speakers from throughout our council network to speak about what issues that we're working on together to move forward this year. But first, a little bit more about the Rhode Island Food Policy Council. Who are we? Rhode Island Food Policy Council is Rhode Island's only food policy council. Our mission is to bring a more equitable, accessible, economically vibrant, and environmentally sustainable food system to the state of Rhode Island. We are an independent nonprofit organization. We're not affiliated with the state or any political bodies, and that allows us to be nimble in our advocacy and really work closely with the stakeholders throughout the state who prioritize these issues. One of the most important things to know about us is that Rhode Island Food Policy Council is driven by the council members who decide what the most pressing issues are in Rhode Island's food system this year and how we can collectively work to make better policy to address them. Next slide, please. Throughout the council's work, we recognize the ongoing need to restate our commitment to equity explicitly and frequently. So with that, here is Rhode Island Food Policy Council's commitment to equity. Rhode Island Food Policy Council recognizes the fact that many negative impacts of Rhode Island's current food system are grounded in a history of colonialism, genocide of Indigenous people, slavery, private ownership of land, and the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of too few. We also recognize that people with visible and non-apparent disabilities are among the most marginalized groups in our country. Rhode Island Food Policy Council believes that when power shifts to be shared more equitably across our communities and our state, we transform our future together for generations to come. As we're listening and learning together today, let's keep this in the front of our mind when we think about the way that Rhode Island's laws help or fail at furthering this commitment. And with that, I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Isaac Reed. You are muted, Isaac.
Thank you, Rachel. Sorry, what do we mean when we talk about the food system? By food system, we mean the interconnected way our food moves from seed to soil and the larger network of issues, people, businesses, and agencies that when working together make this food system a closed circle. So from farmers and fisheries to processing, distribution, retail, consumption, and food waste, we at the Rhode Island Food Policy Council work within our core issue areas to build a closed loop food system that serves all Rhode Islanders, no matter who you are. You all have a part in our food system because everybody eats. So, what are our core issue areas? The Rhode Island Food Policy Council's efforts are focused on these specific factors within our food system. That's food access and nutrition security, building equitable, culturally relevant solutions to food and nutrition access problems, food business and economic development, empowering farmers, aquaculturists, fishers, and food entrepreneurs to thrive, and food, climate, and environment, addressing issues at the intersection of climate change and food systems. We work with our network within these issue areas to strengthen our food system. Now I'm going to pass it back to Rachel to speak on who is in our network.
All right. So, Rhode Island Food Policy Council is a community of people who care about and represents all aspects of our local food system. So you can see some of the kinds of people who are in our network here, from food producers, farmers and fishers, as Isaac mentioned, food entrepreneurs, restaurants and retail, to important representatives of the state's food security safety net. And of course, as Isaac said, the aspect of the food system that every one of us participates in as people who buy and consume food. As you'll hear us say again, we are all stakeholders in our food system because we all eat. So these people come together annually to decide what specific policies and issues are the most pressing for Rhode Island's food system this year in the three areas of food access and nutrition security, food, climate and environment, and food business and economic development. And they strategize on how we want to improve Rhode Island state policies and laws to address and improve those issues. Next slide, please. So, over the past few years, the council has identified 4 or 5 priorities for action that year. This year, it probably comes as no surprise that many of the important issues from past years are still on the table and are still requiring attention. But additional urgent issues have emerged, especially in the area of food security. The council is prioritizing a total of 7 issues in the 2026 legislative year. These priorities identified by the work groups can be found on our 2026 Good Food Policy Agenda document, and Isaac is going to put a link to that document in the chat. Thanks, Isaac. We have speakers from each of our work groups who are going to talk about the priorities they've chosen and what those priorities mean to those council members as stakeholders in our food system. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Danny Ritchie, who is a member of the Food Business and Economic Development Work Group. Dr. Ritchie. Oh, you're muted, Dr. Ritchie.
Hello. How is everybody? So I'm here to talk to you about procurement, and how I basically got involved with it is I live and work in the Mount Hope area, and after attending MPH program at Brown, I found that there was a food pantry on the east side. So it really got me looking at and thinking about why hunger and what are the issues around food systems. We've established a garden here, and we have done work with providing scratch meals for our local recreation center. And in that work, it became clear that we needed to think about working on food procurement. So our aim in the Food Policy Council is to advance food procurement through incentives and policies. At its core, this is about changing public institutional contracting processes to prioritize things like local and community-based economies, environmental sustainability, a valued workforce, and equity, putting Rhode Island money to Rhode Island businesses. If we move in the direction of policies to increase institutional value-based local food purchasing, we will boost our local economy, growing businesses and jobs. We can create opportunities for smaller farmers and low-income entrepreneurs to thrive, provide just compensation and fair treatment for food chain workers, support sustainable farming practices, and reward good environmental stewardship. Look to the success of the Los Angeles Unified District, which only 2 years after enacting good food purchasing policies increased the percentage of locally purchased fruits and vegetables from 9% to 75%. We ask for your support to move good food purchasing policies forward at the State House to build a more just and resilient food system for Rhode Island.
Thank you, Dr. Ritchie. Next, speaking on our priority that has emerged specifically around food security, I'm going to welcome Jason Kashdan, who is a member of our Food Access and Nutrition Security Work Group.
Hey, everybody. So as Rachel said, my name is Jason Kashdan. I'm a registered dietitian, and today I'll be talking about the policy priority to stabilize and support SNAP. I imagine most of you have been following this pretty closely, and we have updated numbers as of last month, so I'll talk about that a bit as well. And yeah, any questions you have, I think there's a Q&A section at the end, so I'll do my best to answer those questions. So the sweeping changes at the federal level that we've been seeing are set to strip our state of millions of dollars in funding. Those changes have already begun needlessly reducing benefits for over 2,000 households. 70 households have actually already had their SNAP benefits completely cut. And then in fewer than 2 years, states will be required to foot a portion of the bill as a penalty for SNAP program error rates. But this doesn't target fraud. Instead, it punishes states and will ultimately make it more difficult and expensive to administer SNAP and help feed our community members. If we don't act now and allocate funding to stabilize and support SNAP, about 29,000 households will be at risk of losing their benefits. And as you can tell by me not speaking incredibly coherently, I'm incredibly frustrated by the situation that we've been put in. We've all been aware of the challenges that caseworkers, SNAP recipients have been facing navigating this complex system, and it is only going to get more complex and more challenging for families to get the benefits that they deserve. And it's not the first time we've advocated for program improvements like increased staffing and supporting programs that maximize SNAP benefits like the bonus bucks and Eat Well, Be Well programs. And so now one of the big things that we've got to tackle is bringing our error rate down from 12%, which is just above the national average, and to create some sort of long-term funding solution to get that down below the new federally mandated threshold of 6%. So on behalf of our community and everyone here and all the folks doing incredible work, please continue to follow this, and I urge you to continue to help stabilize and support SNAP this year.
Thanks so much, Jason. Yes, that is definitely a very pressing issue. So next, I would like to introduce Isaac Berg, who's the Food Policy Council's Food, Climate, and Environment Program Director, to talk about some of our priorities around composting. Isaac.
Sure. So we have, as every state and country has, an issue with wasted food. We have about 100,000 tons that are going to the landfill every year. Other numbers say somewhere closer to 80,000, but it's far too much, regardless what the number is. And this has a lot of wide-ranging effects, right? So one is on the environment. Food waste in landfills is the third leading cause of methane in the country. And here in Rhode Island, we are trying to meet our Act on Climate goals. And so, we need to address it from an environmental perspective. From an economic perspective, there's a lot of wide-ranging effects, including the fact that our municipalities have a pretty sweet deal. They're paying about half what other waste rates are across the country. Well, in this region, I should say. And that's not going to last forever. Our landfill is getting ready to close in about 20 years, and any plan that would address that is going to cost a significant amount of money. So we need to do something about that. So we've proposed the compost fund, and there's other ways that you're going to hear later that we need to address our surplus and wasted food issues. But dedicating money that would go towards composting and food waste diversion is a key component of that. So the way the compost fund essentially works is puts a surcharge on all waste going to the landfill to provide funding for municipal programs and for competitive, so nonprofits and for-profit entities, and goes back towards, again, reducing food waste, composting, food waste, surplus food donation, all of those great things. And we're working with some private funders as well to hopefully make this an even more attractive opportunity. But we really need action, and we need to support this industry to make sure we are heading off, a coming skyrocketing costs.
Thank you so much, Isaac. All right, so next I'm going to turn it to Sienna Viette from the Food Business and Economic Development Work Group to speak about urban and small farms. Sienna.
Hi, my name is Sienna. I am a small farmer in Cumberland, Rhode Island. I own Open Farms Retreat. And for the past few years, we've been working on getting a tax break bill put in to allow small farms and urban farms to have the same tax breaks that larger farms are currently getting. The bill will also identify like what an urban or small farm is, and our original agricultural laws were put into place about 30 years ago, and they did not include smaller urban farms. Small and urban farms are those under 5 acres. My farm is a little under 2.5 acres, so this bill does directly apply to me. Small and urban farms are a very essential part of our communities. We produce large quantities of food, including specialty and culturally relevant produce. With this produce, we are able to feed Rhode Islanders with the least amount of access to fresh and local foods. Passing this bill will be an investment in the sustainability of small farms and Rhode Island's food systems. The money that farmers will be saving on taxes can be directly invested back into our farms, allowing us to grow more food and in turn feed more people. This bill was passed in the House last year, so we're reintroducing it again. And we've taken the feedback from the Farm Bureau and the League of Cities and Towns. We've met with both of them to make sure that we have letters of support from them. So we can get this bill passed. We want to get this bill passed so we can be investing in the success of Rhode Island's food system. And at the foundation of that food system is our small and urban farms and farms in general. So extending these tax breaks that larger farms are already getting will make sure that we're having a more sustainable food system. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sienna. Next, I am going to turn it to Vernon Martin II from our Food Access and Nutrition Security Work Group. Vernon.
Founder and CEO of Kinfolk Benefit Trust, here to speak about our policy priority to update tax policies to increase funding available for food security and other needs of the Rhode Island community. So in the face of federal funding cuts, new state revenue sources will be a vital resource to feeding our state. When state funding is needed to support existing programs and policies that ensure all Rhode Islanders have access to the foods they need and want, or that meet vital social needs, we come up against the same issues again and again. Equally worthy programs are competing for slices of a pie that's just too small to be parsed out. So this is true with longstanding successful programs such as Bonus Bucks, which receives no state funding from Rhode Island, despite parallel programs being funded in other New England, like neighboring states. Our new policy or a new policy like Healthy School Meals for All, which could play a very important role in making sure our students are well nourished and successful in school. Now, this issue matters, and it's urgent that we act now, or fewer and fewer Rhode Islanders will be able to access food. Will not be able, there we go, to access food in the face of new restrictions on SNAP and other vital programs and social safety net services like Medicaid that serve our most vulnerable residents. Now, my mind immediately goes to the legislation itself, like the executive orders, but even looking in Rhode Island at the Rhode Island Foodstuffs law, Title 37, Chapter 2, there's opportunity here to collaborate with other priorities we have, like value-based procurement and beefing up and adding some teeth to this legislation here. There's been talk around the master purchase agreement. That legislation talks about the master purchase agreement, prime food vendor contract, and other things like that, but none has been enforced, right? So there's language, it's regulatory, it's usually internal in the state, but nothing's usually enforced. So perhaps compiling feedback from local farms and food businesses that have been successful in winning state contracts can bring us closer to achieving our policy priority. But either way, one thing is clear. Rhode Island needs to update its tax law to create relief for its residents. So updating language, inserting or adding tax policies, amending current laws are the actions that can be identified with the highest chances of success. There's also revenue for Rhode Islanders, which proposes like a 3% tax on the top, on top of the current rate of like 5.99% on taxable income above $625,000. Right, so this proposal impacts only an estimated of 5,700 tax filers, and it will generate 190 million in new revenue. So those are some of the areas that the council has been exploring, and I thank you for the time to speak.
Thank you, Vernon. And I do want to just put in a plug. Actually, I think many of you, if you're on our regular email list, would have gotten notice that we are having our Food Access and Nutrition Security Group is meeting tomorrow to learn more about the proposed legislation that Vernon mentioned. So if you haven't, if you would like to receive the link to that meeting to learn from the Economic Progress Institute about that proposed more about that proposed legislation, please let me know, put it in the chat, and we'll send out the link to you. Perfect. Thank you. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Dana Siles, who is speaking from our Food Business and Economic Development Work Group. Take it away, Dana.
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here. Thank you. And I also want to just thank the council and the members for your commitment to this particular legislation. And we are approaching our fourth legislative session trying to pass this legislation. And I really want to urge everybody here to support this priority. And here's why. In 2023, Rhode Island's farms, businesses, food service, manufacturing, and retail sectors generated approximately 43% of the state's surplus food. Of this, only 7% was donated, roughly. We can do better. When surplus food is wasted at this scale, accountability for businesses and really for our legislators and also for the public is a shared responsibility among all of us. The bill that we're trying to propose for the fourth legislative session will set fair accountability for businesses and give them a reason to act. So a lot of us know that an estimated 38% of Rhode Islanders are facing food insecurity in 2025. It's worth noting that that's about 24% higher than the 2024 national average, which was 14.3%. And as we all know, also, SNAP benefits are shrinking while hardworking families are struggling to feed themselves. And the nonprofits that aim to support them are having a hard time keeping up. So the tax credit is one of, not the only, but one of the critical solutions towards these problems. Rewarding food generators and putting surplus on plates instead of sending thousands of edible, thousands of tons of edible food into landfills every year. So since 2023, the council has worked closely with legislators, with the Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic, with Rhode Island Commerce, and also with the Rhode Island Division of Taxation to strengthen the bill and make it ready to pass. I think it's fair to say now is the time to do it. If there was ever a time for it to pass, I would say it's now. Rhode Islanders are being forced to choose quantity over quality of food for themselves and their children. And Rhode Islanders are skipping meals for themselves and their families and even their pets, from what I understand. So, according to the Rhode Island Community Food Bank, this is actually really interesting. The state increased its annual allotment from 550,000 in 2024 to 800,000 in 2025 to acquire food, including fresh produce and culturally appropriate items. Passing this bill will allow more surplus to be redirected, reducing the need for purchased food and filling critical gaps for smaller nonprofits with limited capacity, who sometimes can't even take advantage of this food. And just a small increase, even as much as 10%, in surplus food donations could actually deliver millions of meals statewide. It's really important to know that that there are organizations that are operating in Rhode Island that specialize in food recovery. They leverage technology. They make a very seamless experience to make it easy for businesses and for nonprofits to donate and receive food. So we need to put this infrastructure to work in our state. I'm just going to say a couple more things. In 2023, the food service industry sent 53% of its surplus to landfills. That was the highest among any sector. Retail followed at 34%. And strengthening surplus food prevention and incentivizing donation through the tax credit will support compliance with the waste ban. It also cuts disposal costs and it benefits businesses and communities. The bill is a win-win-win-win-win. Literally. I can keep going with the wins, but I won't because of time. It strengthens food and nutrition security, rewards Rhode Island businesses with up to $5,000 a year in tax credits, in tax savings, frees nonprofits to invest in critical programs, reduces methane emissions, extends the life of the central landfill, et cetera, et cetera. Passing the bill will ensure business accountability, educating on incentives, and the waste ban are critical to creating this real change. We've said a few times, Rhode Island could lead the nation in food security and close to zero wasted food. And that starts with education. And this bill is a critical step in empowering businesses to act and be educated. And really, the only thing stopping us is us. So let's go. Let's do it. It's a nonpartisan issue. The impacts of wasted food and food security affect all Rhode Islanders, and we need leaders to unite to pass this bill. And I'll just end with, it's the fourth year. The need is clear. The solution is ready. Let's pass it. So thanks.
Thanks, Dana. Next, to talk about our final priority will be Brad Fessmeyer, also from the Food Business and Economic Development Work Group. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Thanks, Rachel. Really appreciate giving the chance to talk about this really important bill as it relates to our farmers in Rhode Island. My wife and I own a farm in Rhode Island, and I also work for an organization that works with farmers across Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. And in short, what this bill would do would keep the money that comes in through DEM from farmers that use pesticides, paying their pesticide fees to DEM, and it would keep those fees within DEM and put that money back out to farmers. Right now, DEM collects anywhere between $3 to $4 million a year, usually from these pesticide fees, and then that money just kind of goes out to the general fund from there. And what this bill would do would be to keep that money in-house at DEM and then create some kind of structure that or granting program, and this money would be eligible to go back out just to Rhode Island farmers. And why we need that so badly is, many fold, but we've lost 80% of farms in Rhode Island in the last 60 years. We only have about 1,000 farms left in Rhode Island. And as the pandemic has showed us, food insecurity is high, and especially local food security. So we need more farms growing more food and more locally produced products. Um, Also, what we're seeing now is historic programs like NRCS at the national level. NRCS funding is disappearing or being reallocated, unfortunately, to larger commodity-based farms that actually don't even really grow food. So we're seeing NRCS being de-invested in. Um, and our state, has the LASA grant, which is great, and that awards about $450,000 a year out to farms in the state. What this could possibly do, would be to increase that from $400,000 to almost $4 million, which would be, I think, a game changer for our state. Again, with only 1,000 farms in the state, the average farm, is a small farm. 28. What they're saying is 56 acres is the average. That number is actually offset a little skewed because of our large sod sector and sod farms. So really, veggie and flower farms in our state are 20 acres or under, mostly are 10 acres. So this would really be a game changer to help support our farms, support the landscape of our state, and help farms grow more food. And likewise, this really is a link to and related to all of the other Food Policy Council priorities. Without farmers growing the food, none of these other things really matter. It does matter, of course, but what we need is more farmers growing more food and more locally sourced and locally grown products, so that, we can have a really food secure future. So, thanks.
Thank you, Brad. Really appreciate that. It's really clear that although we separate our work into these three different priorities and three different categories, I think it's pretty obvious that they are all intertwined. And as we were talking about, it really is a system, right, in which all of the issues are interrelated. So I really appreciate hearing about how so many of our priorities address economic development, food security, climate, all together from different aspects. So if you want to read more about these, you can find them. We already shared the link earlier, but here is a picture of our good food policy agenda. Isaac has shared the link in the chat again. And yeah, please feel free to use that to share it with your legislators to help support our work. And please do also get involved. So I have put the link to our newsletter in the chat. If you want to stay posted about what's going on with the council and how things are moving ahead, please do sign up for the newsletters. Also, please connect with us on social media. The newsletter is bi-monthly, but social media is a much quicker way of hearing what's going on day to day and getting announcements, as well as getting calls for advocacy that we might need people's help with moving these issues forward throughout the year. So thank you so much to all the speakers. It's really great to have also such a variety of people representing the priorities of the council. Next, I'm going to open it up to questions. I saw a couple of questions in the chat. And the first one I saw, I believe, is from Elsa. Elsa, do you want to speak up, or would you like me to read your question?
Oh, sure. I was just wondering if the tax credit policy applies to individuals as well as businesses.
And that's specifically the donation tax credit?
Mm-hmm.
So Dana or Isaac Berg, would either of you want to speak to that?
I can, or if you want to, Isaac, it's up to you. Okay. So the tax credit as proposed is for businesses, farms, et cetera, that would be donating food. However, people who make donations are also eligible for tax credits in general. Isaac, is there anything that I missed there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Just making sure. You never know.
Um, Awesome. The next question I saw was from Greg Garrett. Greg, your question was about the DEM restricted receipts. Do you want to speak up with that?
Yeah, I mean, we all know that the state of Rhode Island never lets a restricted receipt account lie still. They scoop it every year anyways. But anyway, so even if you manage to get one of these and use it for this, um, unless they change how they do taxation, they're going to cut DEM by that same amount for their farm programs. I mean, so we have to think about this a little more clearly. Um, I'm suggesting that we not only invoke a millionaire's tax, but that the state of Rhode Island pass a tax law that says everybody who got a big tax break from Trump, we just take that money that you were going to send to the feds and we'll take it for the state to replace the money that the feds aren't doing.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think that is I think that the changes that are happening at the federal level definitely are rippling down to us here, and I can definitely feel that we are trying to figure out how to fill a lot of gaps that are being left by changes at the federal level. I see a hand from Robert Vanderslice.
Hi, I'd like to follow up on what Greg had to say. And just having worked for the state, we went through cycles of creating restricted receipt accounts, benefiting from that, and then having all that money taken away, but then getting some sort of change in our budget. Um, I it's a strategy that's uh, difficult to manage well. And unless you have an awful lot of support for moving forward with it, unless the speaker or the Senate president is 100% behind it, I think that's playing with fire. I don't disagree with trying to create an income for what's being proposed, but that strategy just hasn't worked for a long time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, this is a rare policy that is actually supported by, Republicans and Democrats, with the bill sponsor on the House side being Rep. Chippendale and on the, Senate side being Senator DePalma. So I don't think that they would have, especially Senator DePalma, who I know is the head of the Finance Committee. I'm sure they've thought about a lot of these issues.
Mm. But I really appreciate your expertise in that, Bob. Yeah, and I think the work will continue. And I mean, one of the things that we always say in our work is these are very much marathons and not sprints. And every year, I think there's every year gives the opportunity for the advocates for these issues to not only refine and improve their advocacy strategy, but also refine and improve the bills themselves. So I can't really speak to that one in particular, but I do know that in general, when we have bills that are in the marathon stage, they get revisited in the coming years to see what needs to change to make them more successful, more viable, and also more likely to pass. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, with your support, I just think be open to modifications to strategy. So that's great that everybody's willing to support you. If you're getting a lot of pushback, then I would seek direction for how else is best to acquire those funds. But yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Thanks. It's appreciated. Um, Vernon, you had put a question in. It seems it's not particularly attached to one of these pieces of legislation, but I think that's a really good point. If I can just summarize what you said here, that there is that a number of professional degrees are being reclassified or declassified as professional degrees across a lot of different fields, but there are definitely specific ones that relate to food, climate, and environment. Ones I've heard of are like nursing, things like that, that are would no longer be considered professional degrees in the federal definition. So that would limit funding available for those, which definitely could impact our long-term food systems work if we are limiting the workforce on that. So I think that that's a very good point, and definitely worthy of keeping our attention on. Cynthia, I saw your hand next.
Hey, yeah, thank you for taking my comment. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say I did put this in the chat, but I really, really wanted to encourage people to consider the Food Recovery Rhode Island as a resource at URI Extension, because as I'm listening to all these different policy priorities and thinking about 2006 across all of our work, I know that we're going to need a lot of energy and ongoing support from each other. And what I really did like about taking that class was being connected to other people who are working on these solutions, like in a very solutionable kind of way. Like I just feel like it's just so encouraging when you can be with others collectively and celebrate and like eat together and then also like go to farms and do gleaning and learn about composting. And yeah, I just wanted to just put in my plug. Bob Vanderslice, who's on this call, he was in the last class too with me. And I just really enjoyed it and feel like it's going to give me a lot of energy for going into 2026. And I hope if you're interested, you might consider it too.
Nice. Thank you so much, Cynthia.
Yeah, I just wanted to add real quickly, that is one great aspect, when we think about all of these policies, how we need to think about them as a whole systems approach. And so, they're teaching folks at the Food Recovery for Rhode Island course how to be, leaders in certain areas, but then they're going out in the community and working with a lot of the folks who then could use the funding that we would provide for the compost fund or for the food donation tax credit and all of those great things. So, with all of these policies that we're pursuing, we understand that education is a big portion of it, funding and all of these good things.
Jason, I see your hand.
Hey, yeah, let me lower it. I just wanted to throw out a couple more pieces of information on the SNAP changes. So the number one recommendation that I have is if folks could read the Federal Compliance Advisory Report. I'm going to put that link in the chat. There's a like a summary, and then the full report. And for let's see, so this is the summary. Um, and the full report, the final report has obviously a lot more detail. And for just the SNAP portion, if you wanted to, you could, find that. Where's that full report? I mean, I will say, it's like 100-something page document. If you have the time, and even just to consider in the summary, like think about all the changes that Rhode Island is getting hit with. For folks that rely on Medicaid, on SNAP, like they all affect each other. So, and the piece that I spoke on, like to be perfectly honest, is a lot of the changes that we need to make are not the sexy changes. Like they're not the sexy changes that directly provide food to people tomorrow. There's a lot of expenses that we're going to incur when it comes to like the cost burden from like 50% to 75%, for example, that we're now going to be on the hook for. So that's just money to support more staffing, all of the IT stuff, like data gathering. So it's super important. It's, as I mentioned, like folks, there are already 70 households whose cases are closed, like they don't have benefits anymore. That's from the standard utility allowance rules. So things are already happening right now. Um, and yeah, so definitely check out those reports. Also, um, Sarah Blau runs the food access office hours. Um, Randy, I forget. I think Randy, if you're here, I don't know when the next one is. I know like the next year canceled, but
She just sent out an email that
oh, here you go.
January, I think it's Wednesday, January 6th, and
Yeah.
encouraging everyone to take the survey that
Okay.
she included in the email. Thanks for lifting that up, Jason.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me put that. Great. I don't have the link to those at my fingertips, but as we're closing up, if anybody would like to share the link to the state food access office hours or to the survey that you mentioned
I'll
in the
drop
chat.
them in,
Thanks,
Rachel.
Randy. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. I'm so appreciative of all the expertise and perspectives that you all bring into this. So, I think we'll close on that, seeing no more hands. I did want to especially encourage you to please join us next time. Our final session of this year's Policy for the People series is actually happening in 2026. We're going to be sharing the Rhode Island Food System Fact Book on January 27th. So please don't forget to register if you haven't already, and join us for that to hear important data about what is going on in Rhode Island food system. Also, we're really excited to invite our entire community, including all of you all, to Rhode Island Food Policy Council's annual network retreat, which is coming up on January 30th at Innovate Newport. So that retreat is not explicitly about policy, but it's really about building relationships between everyone in our neighborhood, in our network, who comes together to improve our food system. So at the event, we'll focus on building relationships, building community and partnership between all of us who need to work together on these vital issues. You may receive it if you're already on our newsletter and other mailing lists. You may receive the invitation to the event right after this session ends. But if you don't and you do want to join us, please go to the link that Isaac just shared in the chat there to register. There was also, I wanted to see, I also finally want to again share a link to our newsletter to make sure that if you're not on our mailing lists, that you can make sure to be on our mailing lists for news and events coming up. So with all of that, I want to thank you very much for your time and your contributions. We will see you again soon, hopefully at next month's Policy for the People and hopefully at our network retreat. Take care. Have wonderful holidays. Bye-bye.